The old swordsman, why are you here? Wu Dai stared blankly at the old man in the straw raincoat, her face full of fear. In the great Jin dynasty, a mountain-moving realm cultivator could establish their own sect, and a sea-overturning realm cultivator was regarded as a living deity in the eyes of the world, one of the world's few strong ones. The old swordsman, half a step into the sea-overturning realm, could travel 1,000 miles with a single thought, and easily turn rivers and seas upside down. His powers were vast and limitless. In Wu Dai's heart, he was like a divine being. The old swordsman poured the remaining liquor from the jug onto the ancient bronze sword stained with rust. Indifferently, he said, "The prince sent me to take your lives." As soon as these words were spoken, both you and Wu Dai were stunned, faces full of confusion. The old swordsman didn't care what the two were thinking. He continued speaking to himself. "Maybe you were too slow, causing the prince to become suspicious. But it doesn't matter. I don't care about that. I'm just here to take your lives. That's all." Wu Dai despaired, but remained dignified. Her cold eye stared at the old swordsman, and resolutely she said, "Sir, you should hurry down the mountain. I will hold him off." Seeing this situation, your heart warmed. In times of trouble, one sees true character. Everything Wu Dai did was to save her younger brother. In fact, she was still a kind girl at heart. The old swordsman shook his head and chuckled, and slowly said, "Today, none of you will leave." Wu Dai stood in front of you, turned around and gave a bleak smile. "I'm sorry, sir. I dragged you into this. You should run quickly." Wu Dai recalled her life, 52. In her early years, she was born with a poisonous body, regarded by everyone as a calamity. Later, her younger brother was also captured, and she could only serve others to save him. It seemed that she had never lived for herself. Only these days by your side did she feel the long-lost joy. If there is a next life, she hopes to be a little maid by your side. Wu Dai bit her tongue, burning her blood essence to forcibly enhance her strength. She planned to exchange her life for a chance, to create an opportunity for you to escape. Tap! The old swordsman walked towards the two unhurriedly. With each step he took, the Qingliang mountain trembled with the rhythm, like a ground dragon turning over. Clang! A sharp and ear-piercing sword cry resounded. The bronze sword covered with rust spots, wrapped in a chilling sword intent. By the old swordsman's side, the void was cut into pieces by the sword intent. Puff! Wu Dai spat out blood, without even formally engaging in combat. Just a hair-thin strand of sword intent had seriously injured her from a distance. So strong, Wu Dai collapsed to her knees, her almond eyes filled with helplessness and despair. She murmured, "Nothing has changed. I still can't do anything." Wu Dai struggled to stand up, but the severe injury made her almost fall again. Suddenly, a warm and powerful hand held her shoulder. She felt herself leaning against her solid and burning chest. A stream of heat flowed from her shoulder, driving away the residual sword intent in her body. Wu Dai was first stunned, then looked up in astonishment, only to see you standing tall with a cold expression. "Today, I will take her away. Let's see who dares to stop me." You let go of Wu Dai and softly commanded, "Sword, come!" In an instant, a pitch-black demonic sword enveloped in supreme sword intent crossed through thousands of times and spaces and appeared in your hand. In a moment, it suppressed all of the old swordsman's sword intent. The old swordsman's face changed drastically, and his steps halted suddenly. This person gave him an extremely dangerous feeling. The true word of the sword. "Break!" The old swordsman shouted. His sword came out like a dragon. A vast and mighty sword light surged towards you. Wherever the sword light reached, the earth overturned and the void shattered. Its terrifying power was enough to destroy everything. The domain unfolded. You lightly tapped the void. Immediately, all the shattered space and overturned earth were restored. The surrounding scenery lost its color, turning black and gray. like a photograph from a black and white camera. Birds flying and diving reversed frame by frame. Fallen leaves reattached to the branches one by one. The vast sword intent shattered with a bang, turning into countless fragments, returning to the old swordsman's body. Time rules! The old swordsman stared dumbfounded at the restored earth and said, "This is impossible. Time rules fused with swordsmanship. Unheard of. Simply absurd. You are only at the half-step sea overturning realm now. Your vision is still narrow. Seeing me is like a frog at the bottom of a well looking up at the moon. Wait until the day you luckily step into the sea overturning realm. You will see me as an ephemeral mayfly sees the vast sky. But unfortunately, you won't have that chance. Time-space sword intent. Slash! You held the demonic sword and slashed down. In the next moment, a time-space rewind image appeared behind the old swordsman. A new memory inexplicably surfaced in the old swordsman's mind. It was 10 years ago, the day he broke through to the half-step sea overturning realm. At that time, he was sitting cross-legged in his cave dwelling, just about to break through. Suddenly, a beam of light shone into the dark cave. It was a short sword formed by the tributary of time. With a swish, it cut off one of his arms. Disturbed, he failed to break through, and his realm fell to the peak of the mountain-moving realm. Damn it! Is it an illusion? When did this happen? The old swordsman came back to his senses, dismissive, but when he looked down, he found one of his arms was indeed missing. Even his realm had fallen to the peak of the mountain-moving realm. Your sword intent can mark a target. Rewind time to interfere with the past, making it a fixed fact in the present. The old swordsman's face was full of fear, his voice trembling. Such means are simply unheard of. The old swordsman decisively begged for mercy. "Senior, I know my mistake. Spare my life. I am willing to pay any price." You shook your head. You don't know your mistake. You just know you're about to die. As fellow sword cultivators, being able to witness my time sword intent, you can die without regret. Hearing this, the old swordsman broke out in a cold sweat and gritted his teeth. "Senior, don't push me. If you push me too hard, I will risk my life and ensure you are seriously injured." You smiled faintly. At the peak of the sea overturning realm, who dares to hurt me? Besides, you underestimate the power of the time-space sword intent. Suddenly, the old swordsman's eyes glazed over. He patted his head and laughed at himself. What am I talking about? What interference with past time sword intent? I have always been at the peak of the mountain-moving realm. I did try to break through to the sea overturning realm before, but unfortunately failed. Your smile was dazzling, and you gently said, "You are right." This smile made Wudai feel as if she was plunged into an icy cave. For the first time, she felt what true terror was. In the Imperial study of the Great Jin Palace, Empress Dongfang Liuli was convening the important ministers for a meeting. Su Qingku suddenly rushed in and whispered in the Empress's ear, "Your Majesty, the master has been taken away by that witch," saying they went for a leisure trip. Are you referring to Li Dai, the 6th grade official of the Ministry of Rights? Zhang Qinghai asked. Su Qingku nodded. Yes, Zhang Qinghai frowned, glanced at the Empress, and said, "There is something suspicious about Li Dai. I suspect an assassin under Zhao Gu's command is impersonating her." As soon as these words were spoken, the Empress stood up abruptly and angrily said, "Then why did you not report it?" "I am guilty. I wanted to use a long line to catch a big fish. To lure out the mastermind behind this." Zhang Qinghai knelt on the ground with a thud. The ministers were also silent with fear. Even in the face of the rebel army and conflicts with other nations, the Empress had never been so agitated and furious. Unexpectedly, today, for the sake of a man, she was so out of control. One can imagine how important the master mentioned by Su Qingku was in the Empress's heart. The Empress closed her eyes and spread her divine sense, covering and scanning the entire capital. After half a cup of tea's time, the Empress opened her eyes and shouted, "There are signs of time-space disorder at Qingliang Mountain in the southern suburbs. Immediately mobilize the troops to blockade Qingliang Mountain. Everyone else, follow me. Time sword intent. Slash." Your expression was indifferent. You joined your two fingers together and pointed remotely at the old swordsman. The time sword intent rewound again, reversing the long river of time back to the old swordsman's Tengyun realm period. In the next moment, the old swordsman's other arm was also gone. His cultivation level fell to the late Tengyun realm. Wu Dai's eyes were full of horror, unable to bear watching. This was simply the cruelest punishment in the world, the most terrifying means of killing an enemy. Reversing upstream along the long river of time, slashing towards the past. Even if the enemy's hard-earned achievements were cut away, they would foolishly think it was a memory problem when they came to their senses. The old swordsman stood there dumbfounded and foolish. The ancient bronze sword with rust fell to the ground with a clang. He smiled helplessly. "I'm old. My brain doesn't work anymore. I have spent my life at the late Tengyun realm. Where have I seen the scenery from higher places? I actually fantasized about being a half-step C overturning realm powerhouse. Ridiculous." Hearing this, Wu Dai felt even more horrified. Pale skin erupted with goosebumps. You continued to press your fingers. The intent of the sword of time traced back to the youthful days of the old swordsman. The old swordsman's cultivation quickly plummeted. A century's worth of cultivation dispersed in an instant, in a moment's time. The old swordsman became an early-stage cloud ascension cultivator, with empty sleeves and a vacant, bewildered gaze. Has this old man gone mad? An early-stage cloud ascension cultivator, daring to kill a peak cloud ascension cultivator, and a powerful being of unfathomable depth. The old swordsman could no longer maintain his former arrogance. His face filled with fear and trepidation. He knelt down with a thud, crying with a runny nose and tears. "Two seniors, I have eyes but failed to recognize Mount Tai. I have offended you both. Please spare this small one's life." Wu Dai felt as if she were dreaming. A moment ago, the half-step sea covering powerful being was as majestic as a god. In the blink of an eye, he became a pitiful junior in the early stage of cloud ascension. You looked at the old swordsman indifferently. "I have a question for you. Answer honestly. Did you kill Wu Dai's brother?" The old swordsman trembled and said, "Yes, it was 3 years ago. Zhao Gu ordered me to do it. I was just following orders." Hearing this news, Wu Dai couldn't believe it. She looked to you for confirmation. You sighed and nodded. Wu Dai's beautiful eyes immediately became vacant. Her gaze lost its color. Her pupils turned crimson. A single tear of blood slid down her cheek. She didn't scream or shout, nor did she cry out. She just stood there quietly, letting the bloody tears fall. 333. You sighed lightly. A wisp of sword intent burst forth. The old swordsman instantly turned to ashes and dissipated. You looked at Wu Dai and said, "I have a top-grade mental technique of the heavenly rank. Learning this technique, you can take revenge on Zhao Gu, or use it to protect yourself. But I advise you, Zhao Gu is blessed by destiny. If you want to kill him, the chance is very slim." Wu Dai remained silent, suddenly turned around and hugged your waist. Unable to suppress her emotions any longer, she burst into tears. Her tears soaked your clothes. You patted her back and comforted her. "Mourn your loss. Sir, you have shown me great kindness. I am willing to serve you as a slave or servant for life. Just please help me in my cultivation. One day, I will personally kill that Zhao Gu dog thief." Wu Dai was filled with hatred, her teeth clenched. You were about to speak. Suddenly, a cold and majestic voice came. "Am I interrupting your good deeds?" In the southern suburbs of the capital, Qingliang Mountain, the commander of the Imperial Guards, led an army of 3,000 peak first-rank cultivators and sealed off the entire mountain. Empress Dongfang Liuli and a group of ministers crossed the void and arrived above Qingliang Mountain in the blink of an eye. Dongfang Liuli hurriedly spread her divine sense, scanning Qingliang Mountain. And then she saw Wu Dai crying in your arms, her face tear-stained. In an instant, the air fell into an eerie silence. Qin Fenghu opened his mouth, his bull-like eyes wide open, unable to utter a single word for a long time. 378. The Emperor played a really cruel game. He dared to cuckold the Empress. Your Majesty, there must be more to this story. Don't rush. Let's see what happens. Zhang Qinghai's forehead veins throbbed. Wiping cold sweat, he forced a smile. Even though he was known as the greatest strategist of Jin, he was sweating profusely in this situation. Several other uninformed ministers looked down below the clouds. They saw Minister Meng and Wu Dai embracing on the mountaintop. The ministers clapped and laughed, discussing amongst themselves. So it was him. I've heard he has a virtuous and beautiful wife. Seeing them today, it really is true. What good fortune! Qin Fenghu coughed, his tiger eyes almost spitting fire, glaring at the oblivious fools. Do you have no sense at all? You're praising Emperor Fan and the third party, right in front of His Majesty. Do you find it too tiring to keep your heads attached? Want to take them off and play with them? Oh, so you think they match well too? The Empress's face was expressionless, but deep in her eyes a storm raged. The ministers gave Qin Fenghu strange looks. Has the Pillar General grown eyesores? Why is he glaring at us? We are praising Minister Meng and his wife. What does that have to do with him? Of course they match well. They are a perfect couple. A match made in heaven. The ministers quickly gave thumbs up, until someone slowed to realize. Suddenly recalled the day Minister Meng was ennobled. Someone suspected he was the Empress's consort. Then there was the Empress's close maid, Su. Xinqiu's utterance of master. The ministers were all shocked, a chill running down their spines. A large group of them knelt in the air with a thud. Why, Your Majesty, we didn't know he was your dot. The minister stammered, not daring to utter the word consort in public. Go to the Ministry of Justice yourselves and receive a set of thunder punishments. Go now! The Empress said indifferently. The ministers didn't complain. Instead, they felt a bit excited inside, their eyes filled with a burning curiosity. Is it true that His Majesty has finally ... Finally, the Empress could no longer endure. She waved her hand to disperse the clouds, standing with her back to the sun, like an emperor descending to the world. With a cold and majestic voice, she said, I hope I'm not interrupting your good time. On Cool Mountain, Wu Dai hurriedly pushed you away, wiping away her tears. Not daring to look up at the Empress, she lowered her head like a cat caught stealing fish, her fingers twirling her green silk hair. Greetings, Your Majesty. You cupped your hands in salute. Greetings, Your Majesty. Wu Dai followed with a curtsy. But this scene, in the eyes of outsiders, looked like a harmonious picture of a couple. May I ask, Your Majesty, what brings you here? Who asked? Dongfang Liuli narrowed her phoenix eyes slightly. Her eyes seemed to hold a storm of thunder, and said calmly, I received a report that Li Dai, the 6th grade master of the Ministry of Rights, is actually a spy under King Shu's command. Why are you with her? You replied, reporting to Your Majesty, Li Dai was indeed a subordinate of the traitor King Zhao Yuhuan, but that was because her brother was held hostage by him. She had no choice but to follow his orders. However, she recently discovered that her brother was killed 3 years ago. So she is determined to seek revenge, and wants to overthrow the traitor King Zhao Yuhuan. Thus, she infiltrated the capital, and brought intelligence about the traitor king. She hopes it will help Your Majesty. Wu Dai blinked her big eyes. Though she knew you wanted to help her, she had no useful information to provide. Oh, Let's hear it then. Dongfang Liuli said calmly, coldly watching the couple below. Yu bowed with cupped hands and said loudly, Li Dai's real name is Wu Dai. She brought an important piece of information. But before I say it, I hope your majesty can promise to spare Wu Dai's life. I am willing to take her in. The Empress's eyes grew colder. She chuckled softly. You still want to take her in? Yes. Yu remained bowed and said firmly, feeling secretly pleased. Wu Dai will be a great power in the future, the dawn of Radiant's realm. And losing such a great support, Zhao Gu's fortune will plummet, killing two birds with one stone. How wonderful! Wu Dai didn't know what you were thinking. She stared blankly at the young man standing before her, willing to confront the Empress for her sake. Having just learned of her family's loss, Wu Dai suddenly seemed to find a sense of belonging and support. Mr. Wu Dai's eyes became misty. Her enchanting gaze, even more captivating. No, 516. I will not agree. The Empress glanced at Wu Dai's infatuated expression. The Empress decisively refused. You resolutely said, if your majesty does not agree, I will not speak. I remind you, the intelligence Wu Dai brought is the hiding place of the rebel king Zhao Yuhuan. As soon as these words were spoken, Qin Fenghu was the first to become restless. Looking at Dongfang Liuli, he advised, Your Majesty, the bigger picture is more important. Dongfang Liuli's eyes narrowed slightly. Are you bargaining with me? I am very curious. Didn't you say you love your wife deeply? Then are you entangled with another woman, protecting her at all costs? Dongfang Liuli recalled the scene of you embracing Wu Dai. A sour feeling welled up in her heart, as if pricked by needles. Your Majesty, this is all my fault. I just learned the news of my brother's death, and I was overwhelmed with emotion, seeking some comfort. Nothing happened between Mr. Ming and me. We are innocent. Wu Dai stepped forward and said, Hearing this, Dongfang Liuli recalled carefully. The scene indeed did not look like a lover's tryst. For some reason, she felt relieved, as if a heavy stone had been lifted. What is happening to me? I should have realized this earlier. The Empress held her forehead. Even someone as calm and wise as her was thrown into disarray today. I understand. Dongfang Liuli nodded and said, I agree. If the intelligence is true, I will grant your request and spare Wu Dai's life, letting her become your maid and bodyguard. You bowed neither humble nor arrogant and calmly said, Thank you, Your Majesty. Wu Dai was overjoyed, unable to stop herself from looking at you. A captivating smile spread across her face. This scene fell into Dongfang Liuli's eyes. She immediately felt something was wrong, regretting her decision a bit. You turned sideways, pointed your blind cane towards the south and said calmly, The rebel king Zhao Yuhuan leads an army of 1 million. Ambushed in the Zhangxian Mountains. Zhang Qinghai frowned and said in surprise, The Zhangxian Mountains adjacent to the Great Jin border defense line. That's an ancient forbidden land. Throughout history, countless cultivators have entered seeking the treasures of immortals, but few have come out alive. How could an army of 1 million enter safely? You explained. Zhao Yuhuan has the ambition of a hero, often doing things that others dare not imagine. To hide the army from being discovered, he spent several years, regardless of cost and manpower, personally venturing into the Zhangxian Mountains to clear the land. He eventually succeeded in opening up an area large enough to accommodate an army of 1 million. Zhang Qinghai pondered for a long time, simulating and judging the likelihood of this possibility. After a while, Zhang Qinghai looked at Dongfang Liuli. Your Majesty, I believe there is a 90% chance of this being true. Qin Fenghu, Dongfang Liuli decisively ordered. I command you to lead the army. Immediately go to the Zhangxian Mountains. You have 3 days to find Zhao Yuhuan's hiding place. Qin Fenghu was immediately excited. He bowed and took the order. Yes. After speaking, Qin Fenghu tore through space and left. Let's go. Return to the court. The Empress lifted the blockade and said indifferently, the southern region of the Great Jin Empire, the Zhangxian mountains adjacent to the land of Shu, were shrouded in mist all year round. For thousands of miles, they were filled with strange and dangerous demons. Cultivators dared not approach. Zhao Gu alone followed a special route and arrived at a large teleportation array. With a flash of light, Zhao Gu passed through the array and arrived at the inner ring of the Zhangxian mountains. He saw the resting black-armored army and the king of Shu, Zhao Yuhuan, standing at the edge of a cliff. By this time, the old swordsman should have killed Meng Qingzhou. Thinking of this, Zhao Gu believed that this mission, though not a complete success, had at least eliminated a major threat. Moreover, with the emperor dead, the Empress would surely be furious, and the great Jin court would fall into chaos. Father, I have returned. The process was somewhat bumpy, but the result is good. The Emperor Meng Qingzhou is probably dead, Zhao Gu said with a smile, thinking of Meng Qingzhou. Zhao Gu's teeth itched with hatred. Once the rebellion succeeds, he would scour the world, summon Meng Qingzhou's soul, and place it in a soul-refining banner to torture day and night. Only then could he relieve his deep hatred. Zhao Gu laughed sinisterly. The previously silent Zhao Yuhuan furiously slapped Zhao Gu in the face with a loud bang. It sounded like a thunderclap. Zhao Gu flew straight out, crashing through 3 mountains. Zhao Gu coughed up blood, clutching his chest as he struggled to crawl out of the rubble, quickly ran to the king of Shu and knelt down, fearfully asking, Father, why is this? Zhao Yuhan's face was gloomy. Who told you Meng Qingzhou is dead? Meng Qingzhou is not dead, but the old swordsman is. Explain this to me. As he spoke, Zhao Yuhuan threw out a life token broken in 2, with the word sword on it. What? Zhao Gu's face changed drastically. The old swordsman was at the half-step-sea overturning realm, battle-hardened and never failed. How could he fail? Useless, good for nothing but causing trouble. Zhao Yuhan's hair and beard flared wildly, his eyes nearly spitting fire. He rebuked, I entrusted such an important task to you, and this is how you repay me? Now it's all ruined. The Empress will surely suspect something. The situation has completely reversed. The roles of attacker and defender have switched. From now on, we will face the Empress's thunderous revenge. Zhao Yuhan's face turned red with anger. He spat out a mouthful of blood. His aura instantly weakened. His temples turned white, and he aged decades in an instant. The soldiers under the king of Shu's command cried out in alarm, hastily supporting Zhao Yuhuan. Zhao Gu was completely dumbfounded, collapsing to the ground. All the soldiers present looked at Zhao Gu, their eyes filled with disappointment, no longer holding the respect and admiration they once had. Where did it all go wrong? Why? Why did it come to this? Zhao Gu stared blankly at the sky. Cursed heavens! You are so unfair! Zhao Gu roared angrily at the sky, feeling that ever since he met you, it was as if the heavens were against him. No matter what he did, he would be thwarted. 713. Zhao Gu spat out a mouthful of blood in anger and fell back. At that moment, a Tengyun realm centurion rushed over in a panic, kneeling and shouting, It's bad! Scouts observed the great Jin army converging towards the Zhangxian mountains, led by dozens of mountain-moving realm cultivators and 5 sea overturning realm cultivators. Commander is ... the General Qin Fenghu. As soon as these words were spoken, the entire place fell silent. Everyone panicked. The army was filled with an atmosphere of fear, on the verge of mutiny even before the battle began. The king of Shu, Zhao Yuhuan, stood up. Do not panic! Zhao Yuhuan suppressed his anger, trying to appear calm, and said, The Zhangxian Mountains are easy to defend and hard to attack. Even if the Great Jin Court knows, we have nothing to fear. Of course, they couldn't possibly know that the Zhangxian Mountains were Zhao Yuhuan's greatest confidence. For so many years, Zhao Yuhuan had spent most of his time focused on the Zhangxian Mountains, exhausting manpower and resources. He didn't believe anyone in the Great Jin Court could see through his plan. Look, what is that? Suddenly, someone pointed at the sky, their voice trembling. With a rustle, a million soldiers uniformly looked up, then saw an unforgettable sight. They saw a 1,000-foot-tall giant standing between heaven and earth. Its eyes like the sun and moon, its nose and mouth like mountains, holding a giant halberd that reached the sky and earth, its body emitting world-destroying lightning. The giant stood outside the Zhangxian Mountains. The giant bent down, its sun-like eyes scanning the entire Forbidden Zone, inspecting inch by inch. Boom! A ferocious demonic bird spread its sky-covering wings, leaping to attack the giant. Its wings were filled with dark and eerie light. Clearly a demon king. Die! The giant spread its five-fingered mountain, grasping the demonic bird's neck like a chick, and snapped it. The world-destroying lightning instantly obliterated the bird's body and soul. The giant's majestic voice echoed through the heavens, resounding throughout the Zhangxian Mountains, awakening the ancient beings in the depths of the Forbidden Zone. In an instant, the Zhangxian Mountains were filled with eerie mist, the atmosphere becoming increasingly strange and haunting. The Grand General of the Great Jin Dynasty, Qin Fenghu, has been ordered to capture the rebel king. Any creature that dares to obstruct will be killed without mercy. Qin Fenghu took out a golden Imperial decree and said, "Read the Imperial decree. The beings in the Forbidden Zone shall listen and kneel." Qin Fenghu, exhibiting his divine power, planted the giant halberd into the ground, unfolded the Imperial decree, and solemnly read out loud, "By the mandate of heaven, the Emperor decrees. The rebel king of Shu, Zhao Yuhuan, has raised an army to rebel. His crimes are unforgivable. Now proclaim to the world, those who shelter and protect him will share the same guilt as the rebel king. Those who obstruct and block the way will share the same guilt as the rebel king." So ordered. As Qin Fenghu read, each character left the decree, growing in the wind, transforming into golden runes the size of buildings. A total of 60 or 70 golden characters filled the sky, forming a vast killing array that reached the heavens and the earth. Its mighty power suppressed the entire Zhangxian Mountains. Countless creatures were terrified, their souls nearly shattered and their courage broken. The previously arrogant demon kings crawled on the ground, trembling all over. Even the old monsters, who had been in seclusion for 1,000 years, bowed their heads in submission to show respect. The cultivation revealed in the Imperial decree by the Empress made them fearful. A 20-year-old at the half-step Kyahui realm, a stunning talent, who looked down on ancient and modern times. Her talent suppressed the ages. One decree to suppress the Forbidden Zone. In the world of immortal cultivation, AC overturning realm cultivator could command a region, becoming a Higman of the area. A Moon Radiance realm cultivator could be the ruler of a nation, competing for supremacy in the world. The Kyahui realm was a realm that people didn't even dare to imagine. In the Great Jin State, a sect master who could establish a sect would only be referred to by that realm. The Empress, at 20, was at the half-step Kyahui realm. One decree to suppress the Forbidden Zone. How domineering at such a young age. Her elegance was no less than that of an exiled immortal, and the unrivaled Empress, admired by thousands, was now blushing and panting under your command. Great Jin Dynasty. Qin Mansion in the capital. You were leisurely drinking tea, while Su Chengku was seriously reading the battle reports from the frontier. After reading the reports, Su Chengku said excitedly, "Master, there is good news. A general under the rebel king Zhao Yuhuan tried to sneak attack the Golden Armor Army, but was discovered by General Qin, who killed him with one strike." You turn your head to look at Wu Dai kneeling beside you, peeling an orange, and said with a smile, "Now the intelligence about Zhao Yuhuan in the Zhangxian Mountains has been confirmed. You can stay by my side with peace